Hey there everybody, this week we're going to be building this mountain bear New Mexico themed sign for a friend of mine's family member, and it lights up. Let's do it. So we're here at the metal rack picking out the sheet we want to use. We decided on 20 gauge steel as, you know, it's a pretty good balance between strength and weight, especially for something that's just going to hang on the wall like this. It doesn't really need to be strong. In fact, it being light is nice because you can just hang it on a couple screws. So we got 20 gauge cold rolled. We're going to fire that up. I'm generally running about 140 inches a minute at about 30 amps on the plasma table. I'd run a little bit faster, but the table starts to round off the corners once you get over about 150, so I don't do that. We jumped through the cutting, and this whole thing was just kind of mocked up real quick, but I like the way the design turned out. Now you're seeing that we're doing a bunch of little pierces like this, and this is some of the worst stuff you can do for your plasma cutter. You'll basically, as you just see right there, burn out a tip. Lots of pierces without time for the plasma cutter to run, and I don't know if it's cleaning out the tip or what, but anytime you're doing lots of short cuts, you're gonna burn through tips a little bit faster. So we do a tip change. It's not that big of a deal, especially with this HTP machine. It costs me about $8 every time I do a tip change. And when I do a tip change, I about 90% of the time also change out the electrode, just so you don't have any reason to, you know, keep wasting metal effectively. But we jump right back into it and finish the parts out, and they're good to go. 20 gauge cutting as slow as I have to is a little drossy, which is unfortunate, but it's just kind of the cost of having a table that maxes out at a speed that's not as fast as you want to be going. So I'm going to give my buddy Jordan here a little bit of a primer on ways to grind, and I figured I'd leave that in the video, so here we go.
So with this, hold them. We can grind those.
You're gonna see us using this magnetic chuck to hold the parts down. It's a great addition to the shop. It's not sponsored, and I'll jump into it here in a minute. So you want to start with the bottom side as we cut it up first, because it's got more roughness. Then we take off. Now with Sia, we're gonna skip that and just go right to a flap disc. You want to pull towards you. So when you do this one, you'll
go outward. Okay.
You'll work that way, yeah. You can float around on the piece as long as you're not pushing
direction.
No, even if you're going the wrong direction, as long as you're not pushing down. If you're putting weight into it, anything more than the tool's weight, and you catch a burr, it's either gonna bounce back and go into your stomach, or you're gonna throw the part. So with our lesson over, we just jumped into finishing out all these small parts, and this is where that magnetic chuck really comes and shines, holding these little pieces that would just be a bear to clamp. I really don't know how I got along without this thing for the 5 years I didn't have one. So there'll be a link in the description if you're interested in getting yourself one. You guys know I'm a little loose with my grinder safety. I don't use guards for the most part, but one thing, eyes are always on when you get a wire brush. You see that little wire sticking out right there? That is getting ready to break off. I could probably break it off. I'm not going to. And it'll go flinging. If that hits your eyeball, there you go. Right. It just flung off. The guard would not have stopped that though. So I'd appreciate it if the comment section doesn't become a flame war about grinder safety, but I am interested to hear y'all's thoughts on when you do and when you don't use a guard. Wire brushes, they're one of those things that, you know, they don't seem like a big deal, but man, those little wires come flying off. I've had them stick in my gut, I've had them stick in my arm, I got hit in the lip with once, they hurt. So we go and clean up all the parts. We're gonna be doing patina on this sign. And for that, you really want to get all the, you know, fingerprints and grease off of your parts. And we're going to clear coat the back. We wire brushed it to just kind of get a matte finish. This whole thing's supposed to look a little rustic. So we didn't go to like a perfect finish because that's not the look we're looking for. Now I'm using these Sculpt Nouveau Patinas. They make a bunch of different kinds. I've bought some. They did send me some out to try. You guys should check them out if you're here. And this footage of me spraying them is all going to be in real time. You see how fast this kicks off. This is Black Magic Patina, which if done hot turns black, and if done cold kind of turns brownish and mottled.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah. All right. So there's the first round.
Stains the metal?
Yeah.
Like a true stain.
It's a patina, just like, you know, when copper turns green.
Yeah.
It's exactly that, except it's being done chemically. It's only a surface level reaction. So, you know, if you scrubbed on it like a scrub.
So after the first coat of Black Magic, I actually came back with a little bit of Japanese brown to, you know, just get a little bit more color, a little more variability in these mountains. I think the idea we're kind of going for is like a silhouette. So we wanted a real dark color, but a little bit of texture still in it. And then for the bear and the sun, we're using the copper plating patina, which you see how fast that goes, and this stuff is cool. I really like this one. It always comes out looking interesting, and you can do a lot with it.
Water is the reaction.
It ends the reaction? Yeah.
It's all good, it didn't land face down.
Alright, we'll let that air dry for about a minute and then put a clear coat over it. So we're going to snow cap the mountains a little bit. If we do this while the clear coat is still slightly wet, it'll kind of frost the edge. And we get a little bit of kind of dusting throughout the mountain just from the spray that came everywhere.
So the patinas are going to start to rust pretty quickly on the steel. If you have them out somewhere warm or in the sunlight, it's even worse. But you just have to keep that in mind. It's not hard to work around, and it can actually add to that mottled look if that's what you're going for. Now with the backgrounds all drying, we're going to move over to this Lightbox that we're making that's going to contain the LEDs and stop light from leaking out the edges of the sign.
We're going to put a border around this using this.
We're making this border out of some 5/8 flat bar, just so there's a little bit of space in there for the LED strips to go and for the light to kind of bounce around a little bit.
Who needs a press brake? Alright, let's get the welder fired up.
Gonna be welding all this together with the new HTP Pro Pulse 220 MTS. It's a great little machine. I've just got it in the shop and been starting to use it. Now you see we're not wearing gloves. We're taking a little bit of shortcuts here, but you know, for 24 tacks, it's not a big deal.
You want to do any of the welding?
Sure.
You know how to weld?
Ish. Yeah. Pull the trigger, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it was almost good.
We're gonna put a little bit of an arch here for the yellow LEDs, just so it kind of looks a little bit more like sunlight.
Wow, look at how much that opened up.
Yeah.
From the warp.
And then with all that welded into place, we'll move on to putting this little border, and this will make sense here in a minute, onto it. Again, it's just a couple tack welds. You know, we're not worried about strength on something like this. It's holding like a 10-pound sign up, if that. And again, back to clear coat. We're just covering everything up. We're not even taking the time with this to clean everything. It's gonna be an indoor sign. We don't have to stress about waterproofing or anything like that. Now we'll move on to getting our LEDs set up. This is the kind of thing, a lot of people just don't appreciate the amount of time it takes to really do something right in this sort of situation, but you know, there's some time involved. We're gonna get the LED strips out and start prepping everything. Instead of putting some sort of controller in this or, you know, making it Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or any of that, we're just gonna go for a straight plug-in option. Inside the Lightbox here, we're putting one of these little connectors that has a screw down nut on the back of it, and you'll see that coming up. The white lights are going to be a cool white. It's real bright. We probably actually should have went with something a little dimmer, but I think it looks good anyway. All the connectors get pre-tinned. You put a little solder on the LEDs connectors and a little bit of solder on the wire, and then you can just touch them together and they connect quickly and easily, and then shrink wrap where needed. Now this little barrel jack connector is going to go through that hole, and we couldn't actually get in there to tighten a little nut down, so I had to cut a little piece of the border away, and then everything is just going to get reinforced with some super glue. Here's that pre-tinning process you see there. Everything connects up real easy, and I'm going to kind of run through this rapidly because there's a lot that goes into it, and coming up here real soon on the channel, I'm going to be doing a full breakdown on everything about LED strips. So stay tuned for that if you haven't. LED strips have been a big request on Patreon, and I want to give a big shout out to all the guys over there supporting what I'm doing here on the channel, especially Phil Myers, Tyler Prescott, and Will Herndon, who are joined at our Shopsmith's top tier. If you guys want to check out the benefits, there'll be a link in the description.
Press these out however you want them laid out.
Now, with the LEDs set and like glue drying and whatnot, we're going to take the background, connect it to the light box with VHB tape. We've already done that. And then the mountains, the bear, the sun, all of it also going on with VHB tape. VHB is super strong. Once it sets up, takes about 12 hours maybe. Really after about 48, it's all the way set up. You're not getting it back off without a lot of work. Now, thanks to these little keyholes we drilled in off camera earlier, Jordan's able to hang this up on some screws on the wall pretty easily, and we're good to go.
Just got a paper cut on my tongue.
Now, we're just going to have a little bit of fun. It's hard to get all the lights turned off in the shop because there's like 30 switches everywhere, but give you an idea what it looks like inside and outside.
Alright guys, well if you like that one, appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. There'll be a little more info on how we did this down on Patreon, as well as an upcoming video that patrons will get to see first on basically anything you could want to know about how to do LEDs in a sign like this. And of course, click right here for video YouTube things you might like. Thanks.